All right, so welcome back to Watchtower History. We've got an update on the monument. We've asked our friend Timothy, one of our viewers, who's the one who actually has been taking the photos that everyone has seen for the last couple of days. We appreciate that you're on here. And I'll tell you, first of all, what I know that I've learned in recent days is that it's actually been Watchtower members that have been maintaining the monument and the grave over the last several years. So when it was vandalized in the past, it was Watchtower members who had it fixed. They also, if when Russell's grave was vandalized itself, they would replace the photos and took care of that. They also took care of reinscribing the names on the side of the monument in recent years. And with the new vandalism, with it being cracked open and in danger of falling and collapsing, with Watchtower owning this, it's possible that there would be a potential lawsuit there if someone happened to get hurt if it should fall on them. So something had to be done. It either had to be fixed or corrected. And Timothy, you spoke to the monument maker in the area, and what did you find
Yeah,
to him?
I was trying to get information on where the monument had been moved. And so I remember reading or hearing that his stone had been inscribed by, there's two or three monument makers along Cemetery Lane. And so I called one, they had no information. Then I called a Donatelli cemetery markers, and he called me back, and he was able to give me quite a bit of information.
And what did you find out from him? Because I
Well,
find it
he
fascinating.
he told me that the Watchtower had come. A representative came last week. He felt it was a lawyer, but came to him wanting to know what it would take to remove the monument, and he told them that he was willing to remove the panels, which he would do with a crane from the road, and that he would restore the damage. He explained to me how that would be done, clean the panels, and then, of course, make sure it's shipped safely. Uh, he said that the Watchtower was not interested in all. They just wanted the monument out of there. And he said he refused to do the work because the damage in the early 90s had cracked one of the panels. And
Right.
they wanted a guarantee from him that um, if anything happened to that, he would be responsible. And he wasn't willing to do
So
that.
they were that's an evidence that they were trying to preserve the monument in some way,
Yes,
that they didn't want
yeah,
it damaged.
yeah. They didn't want it
And,
damaged.
and back in the 90s, it was open. And I have pictures from that time period as well. But that's probably, if that's a first opening, when the box with the literature and the charter that was inside per that 1919 report, that's possibly when that was removed.
Yeah, he laughed about that. He had heard those uh, stories,
Well,
and
let me ask you this. They put it together originally. Did they have any information on if, as they were putting all those giant pieces together, they left something in the middle of it?
he did not indicate, and I didn't think to ask. He did tell me the name of the person who did the inscribing of the monument. Uh, the stone was brought in from
Right.
Texas, and so yeah, I should have. You think of some questions afterwards. Sadly, that was one. I
What was that name? Do you remember? Do you recall?
Ed Kohler, Kohler.
Which,
So maybe that's the FK. Maybe that should have been an EK that's inscribed on top of the monument.
Oh, that's right. There was the
Yeah.
officials up there. When I visited, I couldn't, I don't know, somebody must have taken a ladder to get that picture, or been very tall, because the only way I could have got up there was to stand on top of one of the tablets, and I was afraid it would, with my fortune, I would have been the one that brought the pyramid down.
No, our friends that live in the area, they took a stepladder route so they
Oh,
could get
okay.
there.
Yeah,
And they were
so
just
that could
trying to
very
protect it
well.
from damage, you know.
That,
So
that could
was
very
it,
well.
Tim? Was it that unstable when you were there that if you it was that bad? If you got on it, it would have
It
collapsed.
was that bad. The gaps were that big, and I mean, like I said, I literally, if I thought I could stand on it to see the initials, I would have, but it did not look stable enough. The capstone definitely held the whole thing together, and then they had used a lot of caulking to,
Once they repaired it over the years, did that.
oh yeah, when they repaired it over, so it looked like it has been gradually opening wider.
And the most shifting was at the bottom.
Yes, at the bottom. Now, an
And
interesting
if
thing.
it would have collapsed inward.
Yeah, it would have collapsed inward. Uh, but in their work, it looks like they may have opened up a spring that's been up behind there, because there's water bubbling up behind the foundation and running.
Sounds like a rumor or conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Waters of life.
I could have drank them free, so. But he informed me of where the pyramid, where they were going to take it. He said that it was being taken to a warehouse in Coriopolis, and that it was being saved there until the Watchtower could prepare a storage place in New York State. He goes, I don't know. He goes, that's not Brooklyn anymore, is it? I told him no. I said that they have a new facility in Warwick, and Watchtower Farms in Wallkill, and I don't even know where that is. But he goes, I know they're planning to ship it eventually there.
Now, I do find it odd that they would stop and put it in a storage facility rather than go to one of their, because they've got plenty of property. I guess they don't want their members viewing it or something. Yeah.
Yes, and a further discussion that I had with the cemetery, he made it very plain that he was not going to reveal any information on where, that he was under contract not to reveal where it was going. And but my feelings were, at least at Watchtower Farms, they surely have plenty of concrete floor and stuff that they could safely keep it. Now, whether they'll ever use it in a display outside somewhere, I doubt it. But I have a feeling it's going to gather dust for a long time.
Well, if the building can structurally hold that weight, you could put it inside a building as well, either on the first floor, on the second floor. We have servers and battery backups that are probably just as heavy, if not heavier, in the same amount of space, that they had to have a structural engineer just to make sure that the building could withhold that kind of weight and it wouldn't collapse on us.
Something I found interesting is that he told me that to build that monument today, say one of us went in and said, I want a pyramid, it would be about $100,000 for a new monument. So to repair that would have been economically, I think, within reach of them to have done.
Well, if in their defense, if it keeps getting vandalized at an isolated place, there's no point in putting money into it just to have that keep happening. So,
Yeah,
who knows? They could say they're putting it in storage to find a place for it and just, as everybody forgets, just leave it in some sort of facility and never erect it again. So, who knows what's going to happen?
but I
I
was
do know
happy
that.
to hear at least it's being saved and not being carted off to some landfill and just dumped. So
The main,
maybe
the
some.
main,
I'm
the
sorry.
main Jehovah's Witness in the area that was really in charge of, and the one taking care of it over the last decades, I guess you could say, he's since moved away to another state. So Watchtower didn't really have anyone that could maintain it, I
Okay.
think, because of that individual's move. And I don't know if anyone else had the skills or the interest to keep it up. So the way that Watchtower had it removed, that they're trying to preserve it, that's good. Whether or not they'll display it is another question. But I don't think anyone's trying to hide anything. I mean, the
No.
witnesses took care of it. They would take tours around it a lot. Every time they would do a history tour around Pittsburgh of the Watchtower history. That was always a part of the tour. It's in their Proclaimers book and a lot of the other literature.
Well,
And a lot of the witnesses were very discouraged that this has happened. The ones that are friends of mine.
1978 at the uh, International Convention that year, the society organized bus tours to go all around Pittsburgh to show where his haberdashery was, where the Martin Building was, which is where PNC Park sits today, um, up to Bigelow Boulevard, where the Kingdom Hall was, that they kept the uh, Pennsylvania Corporation had to have a home in Pennsylvania, and then up to the cemetery. And so that was the first time I had seen it. An interesting side note that my mother and I and my younger brother that afternoon decided we were tired of Danishes and Shasta Cola, so we walked downtown Pittsburgh for lunch. Well, my mother stepped in a pothole. Seemed to be okay, but when we got off the bus at the cemetery, you could hear a snap, and she let out a cry. Here she had broke her foot. So, uh, so she ended up wearing a cast for the rest of the assembly. But I found it interesting that at that time they were actually taking tours out there. They were comfortable with that.
I
But
was
there's
going to
so
say,
much speculation right now,
yeah,
and I just, there's really no way of knowing.
no, no, no. I was going to say about your mother. The poor lady didn't have a leg to stand on. Sorry about that.
Was her name Eileen?
She works at the IHOP.
3 for 3. This might make the footage.
Yeah, I think this is good. So yesterday you said there was a lot of flooding in the area. You just happened to drive by yesterday. It wasn't done on purpose, and
Yeah,
saw this.
no. No, that was disappointing. I just had my phone, so my pictures aren't the best quality. I wish I would have had my camera. So between the gray skies and that, my pictures weren't the highest quality. I have more pictures today of the damage to the cemetery. Uh,
A couple of the children's graves were accidentally
I
damaged.
have a
up there, yeah.
picture of a baby's grave that the wheels went over it and pushed it into the ground. I mean, they just took no care. They ran over graves. And maybe I'm old fashioned, but you show respect to the dead. And Donatelli had told me that he would have taken a crane and lifted those pieces up, which I think would have been a safer way than the way they did it. They were taking care, but there could have been a lot less damage. Now, what
And
I'm
probably
wondering,
with a cost measure, how much is it going to cost to
how
do it
much it's going to cost.
one way
But,
versus another way?
but now they're going to face the cost of repairing the damage, and
Yeah.
it's significant. So,
If you're going to do it right.
yeah, if I can put a plug in for my little group, it's called XJW. Humor will set you free. We do memes and different things. Um, and I have found that humor can be a very healing experience. And then I write a little, I have a little wiener dog at home named Bubba Doo. And I write, he has a fictional life that he's constantly nipping at the heels of the governing body. So he's called Bubba Doo, the Faithful and Under Your Feet Wiener Dog. And he has the great crowd of canines that no dog catcher is able to number. And so he goes on quite a few adventures. And actually, I wrote one the other day about the pyramid. I hope nobody takes it serious because I write that Pastor Russell had a Jack Russell Terrier named Kupu, who was the Pharaoh who built the first or the Great Pyramid in Egypt. So I hope people realize that I'm mixing a little bit of history with a great deal of
Humor.
satire. So, but I went through some therapy in that. I ended up comforting my therapist. She would sit and be crying, and I would end up comforting her, handing her Kleenex, and she would apologize. But that was a little bit healing.
I'm going to say this. I've heard before that other therapists have said they've never met anybody like Jehovah's Witnesses as a group who needed complete realignment of reality and
Yeah.
once they leave, especially if they've left under hostile circumstances.
And I had one that I saw, and she really angered me at first because she said, "You know what your problem is? You need to forgive the Watchtower." And I'm about ready to come out of my chair, like, what do you mean I need to forgive them? But as I got thinking about it over time, she was right. I just kept all that anger that you feel, and still things trigger you. I don't care how many years you're out, you get triggered times. But when you can find it in your heart to say it wasn't my fault, and just say, I forgive you for what you did, it can begin a different kind of healing process. And now, through my little group, we're talking to people, and I'm trying to explain what being a Jehovah Witness is like. It's like, I don't even know where to begin explaining it to people anymore because now it all sounds just so crazy. It's like, why did we believe this stuff?
But there is, as you said, there's healing out there, there's hope, and there's
And
people
there
out
is.
there who will support you if needed. So
Yeah.
that's what's good. We're looking at things at this channel from a different perspective.
Yeah.
It's a more neutral perspective. What
Yeah.
the history. What does the documented history tell us? Where does it lead? And where did the ideas come from? And sometimes we're quite surprised at what we find, but
And I
it's
am a
an
lover of
interesting journey.
history, and you're delving into these from a totally different angle than what I have seen. There are a lot out there that are still bashing in their program, and that's fine. There's a place for that. But I like just the history, even though I'm not a witness anymore. I'm fascinated by Russell and the Bible students. And some of it may be because I'm from Pittsburgh, and I know, I pass some of these sites every day. And so it's all very real. I try to go back in my mind to picture what it must have been like. But that is another healing thing, is hearing these stories, and then the way you two present them, digging into not just, well, Best-Reem existed, but here's how it was funded. And,
Yeah.
you know, um, your letter on Rutherford, the death threats that he received from his brother, I had never, ever heard of that before. And that was a fantastic episode. And, I mean, I've enjoyed all of them. And the ironic thing is, it was from you, from you. I was watching program 7 of one of your latest series, and you put a little mention. By the way, the pyramid is the monument has been, and I'm like, what?
And
Because
so you
I tried
typed right away, I'm going to go check it out.
Yeah,
And we
it's
really
like,
appreciate
well,
what
I
you did.
did literally that afternoon. I run my nephew to work, and that's one of the ways I can go. And it was like, it's like, oh, they did steal it. And then I had stopped and took my own pictures, and
Well, now we've broken a large story together as a group, right?
I said that. I said to
The
Paul, my
entire
roommate, I said, this is
XJW
my
community is
15
interested.
minutes of fame. So.
The entire XJW's community is interested in this story now. But again, we didn't find it either. This was found by friends of mine who are still Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay.
So they're the ones who found this out.
Well, then I've become friends with 2 splinter groups, Associated Bible Students, and then there's another one. I'm sorry, I forget off the top of my head.
The Layman's Community, possibly?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
And,
I think there's some in Pennsylvania there.
And they've been very pleasant
Chester
talking
Springs.
with. And so it's been nice making a few friends, and I may stay in touch with them and just kind of, who knows, see what information they may track down too. So.
I know somebody who's currently researching the subject and has been for decades. And he hopes to, he's actually written a book on the subject, on the monument, on the pyramid, on the grave, and the cemetery plot.
Yeah, I saw
farm at the bottom of the hill.
A new book is supposed to be coming out.
Except now with the new information, the book needs to be revised.
Well, this is the ironic thing. I just ordered this book.
Yeah.
Last week I ordered it. I've been so excited for it to come, about the last days of Russell's death and his funeral, and they have so many fantastic pictures.
Bernard is a Jehovah's Witness in Europe, so.
Oh, okay. But
he's got good information in it.
He's got good information.
And photos I've never seen before.
Me neither. And once again, I have learned so much this week from research I've done, because even in my group, I want to give accurate information. People put a lot of stuff out there, and I know it's false, so it's like I want to make sure what I'm telling them is correct.
That's getting back to your appreciation for what Jeff and I've been doing. We get here and there, we laugh. We'll get a couple of likes or a private email disagreeing with something. And it's like, well, wait, the documentation is right here. What don't you like? What it says? I mean, we didn't write it ourselves. This has been in microfilm for 100 years. You can't not like it.
Yeah. People are funny. I mean, what can you say? I think when you heard a story a certain way for decades, and suddenly there's new information on it, I think some people struggle to process that. I personally eat it up.
That's good that you said that, because that is the point. Instead of going with the previous ideas that have been out there, we're trying to find the history by following the documentation. Where does the evidence
follow the
lead?
Money?
Yeah, follow the money. Or now that I know where to look in the microfilm record, before I had to just stab in the dark. Where do you look in the microfilm record? Now that I have a good idea, I can really focus down to like specific years, specific magazines from specific cities, and specific dates. I know exactly where to look now, only because I've done the legwork, but it's taken decades to get there.
Is it
So
easier
it's a fun
now
journey.
with the course with the internet and more and more old materials coming online?
Yeah.
Uh, I've
We
researched
asked
like my family history, and there's a wealth of information, old newspapers and stuff.
we asked Pastor David Dean, who we interviewed recently,
Was that
because
on the Adventist?
that was on the Advent Christian Church
Yeah,
denomination.
I
Yeah.
enjoyed that one very much.
Pastor David Dean, I asked him if they were interested in scanning those materials. And he said that that's on their talking list, that they would like to do that someday and make it available for the public, for researchers. But, you know, how expensive of a project is it for such a small denomination? That's up for them to decide. But it would
Sometimes
be nice to see that.
you can find colleges where the students will do it.
10 minutes, 15 minutes from here. So
hopefully it will be done.
yep. But thank you so much, Timothy, for helping us out. Thank you for finding more information, making your pictures available, and for joining us this
Well, thank
afternoon.
you for your kindness, for your programs. I get a lot of laughs out of them as well as learning, and that's what makes it fun listening to both of you. So I look forward to more programs and stories.
And thank you for your story.
Thank you both.
We try to have fun.
Hey, you got to have a laugh or two along the way. The society, you know, they just throw you the material. It's like it's just right there. So how can you not laugh? So thank both of you very much for the work you do.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Take care.